Good afternoon. This is Jason with our Tuesday drive. So I was thinking to myself this week, I need to tell the story of Al Capone and Easy Eddie. If you know anything about Al Capone and Easy Eddie, Al Capone was a mobster and owned Chicago. And Al Capone was no hero. He was just a criminal. That's all he was, and a mobster and responsible for death and killing. But he had to stay protected from the authorities, and so he had an attorney. His lawyer became known as Easy Eddie. That was his nickname, and He was a good lawyer. Matter of fact, Eddie was very good. He kept Al Capone through a lot of legal maneuvering out of jail and out of prison. And to show his thanks for that, Al Capone made sure that Easy Eddie was taken care of. Matter of fact, said that Easy Eddie's house took up a full city block in the city of Chicago and was fully fenced in. Eddie lived a very high life with Al Capone, and Eddie kind of turned a blind eye to everything that was going on around him because he was living this great lifestyle. Eddie did have one soft spot, and like most of us, there's probably something in your life. I know there's 3 things in my life that are very special to me. Very similarly, Eddie had a son that had his heart, and so he made sure that his son had everything that he needed. He had the best education, he had the finest clothes, cars, and so Eddie's son was definitely well cared for. And even though Eddie was involved in organized crime with Al Capone and being a mobster's lawyer, he did everything that he could to try and teach his son right from wrong. And I think he wanted, like all of us with our children, we want them to have a better life than what we had. And I think that that became a source of inner struggle and strife for Easy Eddie, because he knew he wasn't teaching him the right lessons. And so he knew that he wasn't providing a good example, and he knew that he wasn't providing a good name. And so story has it that Easy Eddie really wanted to clarify that and kind of make right what he had done wrong in his son's eyes. So he decided that the only way that he could do that would be to go to the authorities and kind of tell them what he had done for Al Capone, and how he had protected him, how he had used legal maneuvering to protect him. And he knew this was going to probably cost him his life, but he figured that if he did this, then perhaps his son would go on and have a better life than he had, maybe not monetarily, but as far as his reputation and his name. And so he did. And as we know, the story goes that Easy Eddie turned state's evidence against Al Capone, and within the year, Easy Eddie was gunned down in the streets of Chicago. But in Easy Eddie's eyes, he figured, I'd given my son what I thought that I didn't have myself. Now, before I get comments about that, we all also know that that's the romantic side of that story. We also know there's the flip side, that Easy Eddie was a smart man. He saw the writing on the wall. He knew that Al Capone was going to go down, and so he figured if he beat him to the punch, maybe they would have mercy on him for his involvement. So there's that side of the story. Fast forward to World War II, and there were a lot of great heroes through World War II. One of the early pilots was a guy named Butch O'Hare. He was a fighter pilot, and he was assigned out in the South Pacific. And Butch O'Hare was a hero. He did many heroic things. He was a fighter pilot. He was trained at the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, and he was flying off of the USS Lexington in the South Pacific during World War II. And there were some strikes that were going on some Japanese ships, and there were some Japanese bombers on their way, and so time was kind of drawing near that there was something that needed to happen. And so Butch O'Hare was dispatched with some other fighter pilots to go and stop these bombers that were heading towards the Lexington. And so as they zoomed off in their V formation, some of the bombers tried to head them off, and Butch O'Hare spotted them, and I think the story has it that some of the other fighter pilots were a little too far away to reach them. Some of the bombers had already released some bombs, and well, even one story says that Butch O'Hare got back in and took back off so quickly that he did not have time to refuel his plane. And so in the midst of this gunfight, he was just resorted to the fact of trying to clip wings and dive at these other bombers and shoot down as many Japanese planes as he could before he ran out of fuel. Butch O'Hare was able to evade some of the bombs that were released, and kind of in heroic fashion, in that February, I believe it was 1942, Butch O'Hare had about 60 rounds of ammunition on his plane, and really single-handedly saved the Lexington. Tell you that story to let you know, Butch O'Hare, he was really the first ace of World War II. You hear that? Fighter ace of World War II. And he was the first naval aviator to win the Congressional Medal of Honor. And about a year later, he was killed in combat. And Butch was just shy of his 30th birthday. I think he was 29 years old when he died. And his hometown decided to pay tribute to him and his heroic actions in World War II. And so they renamed the airport after him. And so they renamed O'Hare Airport in Chicago after Butch O'Hare, to give him memory. And if you go there, you'll see a statue of him between a couple of the terminals, and I believe his Congressional Medal of Honor is also displayed there. The reason why I tell you that story, and you may have made the connection now, that his hometown was Chicago. Butch O'Hare's father was named Easy Eddie, and he was Al Capone's attorney, the man who vowed to give his son a better life and a better name. There's also speculation that the romantic side of Butch O'Hare's journey and those deeds have been romanticized through the years. Regardless of that fact, here's the point that I want to make to you today. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter about what you think your family name or your name is associated with. We have within each of us the power to change whatever that is, to make it better or to make it worse. And so know, if you're struggling with that, if you're struggling with a past that you're not proud of, if you're struggling with a family name that is not something that you're proud of, like Easy Eddie being associated with mobsters, we each have within us the power to change that. And so know that I believe in you and I trust you, and I think that you have it within you to do whatever you want to do, be whoever you want to be, and who knows, maybe even one day have an airport named after you. So I hope it's a great week for you. I look forward to seeing you next week, and until then, so long, Felicia.